Welcome to the eCommerce Badassery podcast, the place for scrappy entrepreneurs who want to learn actionable steps and strategies to grow the traffic, sales, and profit in your e-commerce business. I'm your host, Jessica Totillo-Coster, a 20-year retail veteran and former brick-and-mortar boutique owner who spent 3 years as the only employee of a 7-figure online store. That shit was crazy. I know exactly how it feels to do all the things, and I'm sharing everything I learned the hard way so you don't have to. I may have started this business by accident, but supporting badass bosses like you lights me the fuck up, and I am so stoked to see you grow. Are you ready, babe? Let's roll. Welcome back to the eCommerce Badassery podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Totillo-Coster. You're going to love today's guest, Chase Clymer, a straight-talking conversion rate optimization strategist. Chase is the co-founder at Electric Eye, where he and his team create Shopify-powered sales machines with strategic design and development decisions. He's also host of the Honest E-commerce podcast, where he provides online store owners with honest, actionable advice to increase their sales and grow their business. If you've been around for a while, you know all about my cynicism when it comes to developers and agencies. What you'll hear in this episode and what I appreciate most about Chase is that he keeps it 100 when it comes to what you actually need to focus on from a conversion optimization perspective and what you don't need to waste your time, money, or energy on. While we skim the surface of a lot of different topics today, please check the full show notes for links to other episodes where I dive deeper into implementing these tactics and strategies. All right, friends, let's hop into the episode. Hey, Chase, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat. And the first thing I always ask any of my guests, especially when they are in the consultant role, is why we should listen to anything you have to say today.
You shouldn't. Take everything I say with a grain of salt and go get your own results and test everything.
Yes, I love that answer. Best answer. Good job. So we're going to be talking about conversion rate optimization today, which I'm super stoked about, and I'm excited to get a little bit nerdy with you. And I want to set the stage for people because I have a very large range of business sizes who are listening. A lot of the times when I talk about some of the more, and I wouldn't say CRO is technically advanced, but it can get advanced when you're talking about testing and all of that. I just want to remind you guys that there is no silver bullet to your business, and you can do all the testing and optimization and all of that on your website that you want. But if you don't have enough traffic, none of it's going to mean anything. None of it's going to be statistically relevant.
Or a product that people want.
Yeah, well, yes. I'm going to assume anyone who's listening to me, for the most part, they've proven people want the product. They just can't get enough eyeballs on it. But I think what happens a lot of the time is people get a little bit of FOMO when they hear the things that we talk about on the podcast, and they feel like they need to be doing all of it. So that may not be the case for you who's listening.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you're ever unsure, hit me up on Instagram. Come join me in the lounge, message me, whatever. Let's talk about it. I just don't want you to be like spinning your wheels and wasting your time. It's a lot easier to just hide behind your computer than it is to get out there and market yourself. So I understand why you want to do it. So I just want to set the stage there. So let's hop in. I was listening to you on, it was somebody else's podcast. You were at an event and you were talking about actually
that just came out. I was at eTail, wasn't I? And it was live and wild.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
That was a super fun one because I had just met him. So they brought all the podcasters together to kind of just talk about this is the booth and here's how things work. But him and I just hit it off, and he's like, I've got 30 minutes free right now. You want to do a impromptu podcast? And I was like, let's go. I don't know.
Yeah. It must have been that one. You were talking about your past as a musician, but at the end, you talked about, I think it was the 3 main places you focus on when you're working with someone doing an audit or optimizing conversion and all that. So I think we should just dive into those because those are the ones I love to talk about. And I think the ones that people aren't really paying enough attention to. So can you just tell my audience what those are, and then we'll just dive in?
Well, there's a few things I wanted to clarify, I guess, or just help listeners that are just getting into CRO understanding. So first of all, with conversion rate optimization, it's the worst name in the world for what you're doing. So everyone hears conversion rate optimization and they take it literally, as in we are optimizing for the conversion rate on a website. But historically, what a conversion was a user taking an action on your website that you wanted them to take. So with old school websites that could have been a lead form submission, that was technically a conversion, and doing conversion rate optimizations was getting more leads to fill out your form. So you can take this thing and you can apply it everywhere, right? So when e-commerce came to prominence online, they kind of just stole the word conversion rate and made it kind of unanimous with how many people visit your site versus how many people purchase, and that's your conversion rate. And that's what a lot of people think about. But when you're doing CRO, you can optimize for multiple KPIs depending on kind of what your goals are. We do a lot of work on not only conversion rate optimization, but also average order value optimization and profit optimization, figuring out what offers and all that stuff kind of align with the customer's margins and their products and their sales and all that jazz. So just a little bit of housekeeping on terminology at the top. But when we are doing CRO and we're auditing websites, you basically start closest to the money and then you back up. You can start on the actual checkout or even the purchased page. They've already bought something from you. That's a conversion right there. And there are things to optimize there to raise your AOV, like I was just talking about. But if you take a step before in checkout, there are usually opportunities there. Within your side cart, there are usually opportunities. Where we usually start 9 times out of 10 is on the product page. And then from there, your collection page and then your home page. If I didn't say a page, it's probably because it's not important, to be completely honest. And then I would say that product pages and landing pages are kind of the same thing in this theory. There's nuances to both of them. But most of the time when we're getting in, we're going to talk with a client and understand what's like their flagship product or offer. And we're just going to focus there. Like, we're lazy at the end of the day. Let's do the least amount of work to make the highest amount of impact.
Yes.
So let's focus where the money's already being made. Trying to raise the conversion rate on a failing product is just spiraling the drain. It's just like, cut your losses, focus on what's working.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't love that more. So I have a membership program for e-commerce businesses. And one of the first things, I wish my system would allow me to lock everything else until they filled out the spreadsheet, because it's literally them plugging in all of their numbers, their AOV, their website conversion rate, all of that, and saying, hey, if these are the numbers you want to hit based on your margin, this is how much traffic, this is how much AOV. It's just math. E-commerce is just one big math problem.
Yeah. Conversion rate, average order value, sessions, times them together, whatever framework you're looking at, that's, the averages for the month. I would love to see your spreadsheets versus our spreadsheets. That would be us nerding out later on.
Yeah. So, and I try and do all the calculations for them so that they can see, like, these are the levers you have to pull and push. And that's literally all it is. Like, everything else doesn't matter. Just focus on these numbers. And I think one of the really important things, and I'd love to get, if you have some benchmarks or things they can aim for on this, talking specifically about the journey of the website, right? Like, you're looking at the homepage, the collection page, the product page are like those most important things. And a lot of times what I see happen, people will come to me and they'll say, the conversion rate on my website sucks. And I'm like, okay, but like, does it really? Let's look at it one step further. And typically there's one traffic channel that's horrific and pulling the whole average down, or I'm breaking it over the different steps. So I'm like, all right, well, you got this many people landing on your website, but only 20% of them are actually going to shop. So there's something in that step. Or, okay, they started shopping, but only 5% of them are adding a product to cart. Okay, that's probably something on your product page then. And so is that an approach that you take with people? And if it is, what are sort of the numbers that you're looking for there?
Oh, so I need to respond to 2 things you just said before I forget. So first, you were talking about how people land on the website and only like 20% visit the shopping section. This is, I think, like a global sin in e-commerce where people will have the navigation have nonsense up there and it doesn't make any sense. They're like, people care about my story or they want my blog or this. No, they don't. If you have a business that's based on selling something, your top line navigation needs to be shopping focused. And that's usually a major call out and an easy test to run right off the rip when we're talking to people. So that's like a free test to go do. So if what I'm saying resonates with you or you feel it and you're like, I think he's targeting me, just go do that. That's going to work for you. And then the next thing you said is having a low add to cart. People won't add something to their cart because they don't believe that product solves the problem that led them to be on your website, right? So with getting really theoretical about the basis of conversion rate optimization is it comes down to fear, uncertainty, and doubt that your product will solve my problem. So I'm scared that it's not going to show up on time, or I doubt that this product's as good as you say. There are all these limiting factors to you building enough trust for them to believe in the value of the product you're trying to sell it for. So what it really comes down to is add more information to your product page, more trust factors. You got a great return policy. Why is that not on your page here? Is it free shipping? Why is that not on your page? Is it a veteran-owned business? Is it made in America? What are the factors that your customers actually truly care about? All that stuff needs to be as close to your add to cart button without confusing people as possible. So those were two things about what you just said that I felt that I needed to just ramble about.
I love it.
And then I forgot what you actually asked me.
What I asked was, are there benchmarks, numbers, goals that you look for at those steps?
So benchmarks are so hilarious. It's basically, there are industry benchmarks, sure, but just knowing that your competitor converts at 5% and you're converting at 3%, how does that help you be a better business? So I think that it's a waste of time to compare yourselves to others because you don't know what their margins are. You don't know how much they can afford to acquire a customer. You don't know if they're in debt.
Yes.
There's a lot of things you don't know. So I think it's sure, knowing some of that stuff's fine. Globally, if we're talking about a luxury product, an expensive product, they're going to have a lower conversion rate because it's more of a considered purchase versus a $15 widget. I can throw that on my credit card and nobody's going to care. That's usually going to have a higher conversion rate, right? And then you get into consumables versus other things and niche markets, and it's all over the place. So no, 3% isn't a benchmark everyone needs to look for. It's what you are, where you're at in your business, and how refined your funnel is really matters. I work with some businesses where 3% would ruin their day.
Yeah. Well, I love that answer. And while I will generally give some of those industry benchmarks just so people have a frame of reference, because most of the people I work with, they literally have just no idea. But really, your goal is to just be better than you were yesterday. And that's all you can do. That's really all you can do.
This is such a good podcast. You guys are hearing great stuff from Jessica, and I'm excited to hear it myself.
Well, thank you, Chase. And no, I didn't ask him to say that. So let's go back to the navigation menu because this is a thorn in my side. And I have a very specific question for you, and then we'll talk about some best practices. So top level navigation. The thing that drives me nuts is when everything is hidden under one shop button if they have more than 3 collections and 10 products or something. What is your experience and feeling about that? I think I really just want validation that people shouldn't do that.
Here's validation. Now cut this out and keep it and use it as your alarm clock in the morning. All right. Yeah, you're right. So that's a really easy test to run. We specifically only work with Shopify. Like I said earlier, we're kind of lazy. We like to do the same thing and do it right every time. We have familiarity with some other platforms, and we don't really touch them anymore. When we do the rare migration project, we'll get into some old platforms. We're always working with Shopify. So running a navigation test from one theme to a different theme with a software like IntelliGems is extremely easy to do. And this is my favorite thing. As a consultant, there's always this pushback from the founders, you don't know as much as I do, which I get and I understand, and that's true. I don't know as much about your product or your customer as you do, but I do know a lot about patterns and UX and conversion rate optimization. And that's why you're hiring me. So what I find that we do all the time where someone's the navigation, we've tried this forever and we really like how it is now because we believe and feel this information is super important. I'm cool. How about we just run a split test and then the data tells us what's right?
Yeah. Anytime I am working with someone, and I'll give you a little bit more background on me. I really started e-commerce badassery completely by accident. It was when MailChimp and Shopify broke up and people didn't know what to do. So I started talking to them about Klaviyo because that's what I had been using at my previous day job. Rest is history. Here I am.
Yeah, that was an easy wave to ride, I'd say.
And I go in to talk to them about email, but you can have the best emails ever. But if you don't have any traffic, if you don't have people going through your automations, they can't do their job. If you don't have people on your website, they can't shop. And so it just turned into this more holistic consulting thing. And the navigation is always my first stop. I'm like, people probably can't even find what you sell on here because you're not presenting it to them. I don't remember whose podcast I was on, but they asked me, is there a perfect navigation? And I didn't have an answer. So I threw it back at him and I was like, well, what do you think? And he said, in theory, yes. In practice, probably not. So I want to ask you the same thing. Is there a perfect navigation?
That sounds like Kurt Elster.
I think it may have been. I don't even remember now.
Just that answer was like, I could hear it in his voice. I mean, probably statistically, there's a best navigation, but I mean, most of the time we're looking at it from like the lens of like, where's all the money coming from in your sales? Then also like, where are all the clicks already going? You can take a look at your navigation as it currently stands and see if there's things that could be trimmed because nobody's clicking on it already. Like that will get you into a better direction. But like if you're just looking at a global overhaul or a MVP of your first website, it's like top level navigation should be like your best selling categories and then maybe a shop all button and then maybe contact, right? You can bury a lot of these things that don't matter in the footer. Like if you're a brand new brand, maybe have about up there in the header. If you've been around a while, about, hell, you can even put contact in the footer. Your blog, I don't think blogs really need prominence in the top level navigation because the point of a blog is to bring people in from a retention or organic perspective. So they're coming in with that direct link. So they don't need to find it later on. Sale as well. I think that's a good one for top level navigation. I mean, mega menus are amazing things these days. And so much goes into building out these trees and stuff. So a one size fits all like navigation thing doesn't make sense. Because if you have a business that's selling one product, right, they should literally probably land the button. To be honest, is like go to product, buy the product. But if you've got a 1,000 SKUs, then it's a more collection based approach. And then that gets us into like talking about the advantages and the money you're leaving on the table if you're not using better sorting, filtering, and like smart search capabilities. That's another thing that we see right off the rip usually when we're like kind of looking at stuff.
Oh my gosh. So my previous day job, I used to sell dildos on the internet is kind of how I word that. We had a very large product assortment and a lot of different customers. And I remember anytime we would go into optimize our navigation and really try and figure it out, like we're literally in the conference room with printed out spreadsheets, trying to see what it would look like. And obviously there were just like way too many people involved in this, but that's normal in a corporate company. Ultimately, it just comes down to what is the customer coming to you for? And make sure they can get there in as few clicks as humanly possible.
Yep. Yeah. Most modern founders are like, you point out something obvious, they almost like hit themselves in the head. They go, why have we done that already? So just think about this. Amazon, Walmart, Target, go to their collection pages. What do you notice? What is in common with those UX choices? And then go to yours. And then you'll clearly see what is lacking, which is the robust ability for filtering and searching on those collection pages that allow me to drill down to the exact product and the size, the color, the shape, the sort, whatever, like exactly what I want in a couple of clicks versus on some websites that aren't as well thought out or well built out. When you have, your cousin build it for you because he went to web design school, you get something that doesn't allow your customers to shop in such a streamlined way.
So important. And let's talk about the filtering and even the search. I don't even remember. Maybe we were using Search Spring. Is that an app?
Yeah, that's a big one. That was pretty powerful, but now Shopify's like search and discovery app is awesome.
Yeah, it's so good.
We tend to do that unless there's a real reason we don't need to use it.
And actually, Search Spring was annoying because the way they index products was actually completely separate from Shopify. I don't remember all the tech around it. It's been a while, but I wasn't a fan. Shopify search and discovery didn't exist. You couldn't do synonyms and things like that before, but now you can. But I think that's another really big missed opportunity for those with big product assortments. Look, if you have 30 products, you don't got to be worrying about search optimization. But if you have hundreds, thousands of SKUs, there's so much power in that. The person who searches is worth 10 times more than the person who's just there to browse your website. So if you can really optimize that and get them to where they need to go, you'll win is the short story there. So tell me, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see with filter and search? Where's the first place people should be looking at?
Well, first, the biggest mistake is just not taking it seriously, not having any of that stuff implemented. With search, especially on mobile, it should be really easy to get to the search and to use search on mobile. I think that a lot of merchants that are in that phase going from like DIY to working with designers, developers, contractors, agencies, and stuff like that, they'll have themes that don't have something we always look for is all the cool stuff that we built into the collection page also make it over to the search results page?
Yeah.
Because the normal answer is no, it has not, and it's not there. The search results page only shows like one thing. Also, when people are searching, unless you build it out specifically, you only get product results, or you will only get article results from your blog, but you won't get both. And then how it solves for those results within the same results page is different. So there's like some thought that needs to go into that. Again, it's what are the products, what are the customers looking for? You can have stores where they have tens of thousands of blog articles and 2 products, because all those blog articles do is to sell those 2 products, or vice versa. They have 2 articles and then they've got 10,000 products, and the articles at that point probably shouldn't even exist.
Right.
But yeah, search is extremely powerful. And to what you said, if they search whatever they're looking for, they probably would have bought if you did a better job of either having it
Right.
or building value around that product. So with a lot of the more modern search apps and search and discovery, I believe, will show you what people are searching.
Yes.
And
so
then you
powerful.
can use that information to optimize stuff in your store. If it's like, well, people are always searching for our shipping policy, maybe we should make that more prominent on the product page.
Yeah, because it's probably really important to them for some reason. Again, if you created your own product and you're like a 1 to 2 product store, search doesn't really matter for you. But if you are buying and reselling other people's stuff, especially, and you're going for multiple brands, like what people are searching for on your website, there's so much gold in there, market research in there. We relied heavily on that in my previous gig. Do you see any difference? Because we had such a big debate about this. We did have a custom built theme, but we were so sure to make our search bar large and prominent. And we were also very concerned about making sure on mobile, it wasn't hidden in the menu, that it was actually across the top under the logo.
If you've got a high SKU count store, I think that's amazing. That's a good UX decision.
So it does matter.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Amazon basically drove that as best practice into the dirt. If you've got hundreds even of products and someone can type it in with less clicks than it could take to go through your hierarchy tree to get to the thing that they want, search being global and like easy to use is definitely going to be way easier for everybody.
Yeah. It's funny because there's some things that you think, oh, it's one click, right? It's right there in the menu. Like everyone knows to look for it in the menu. They can find the search bar, but then taking it out of there can make a huge difference. On the flip side of that, though, I think there are a lot of things people feel like do matter, especially when they're thinking about doing A/B testing and stuff like that in your website. What are the things that like don't matter and people shouldn't waste their time about?
Button color. What else? I mean, you kind of scratched the surface on this earlier, but if you don't have the traffic to support testing, anything you're doing is kind of just like gut check and best practice at the end of the day. So I'll even give you some numbers. I don't think $1 million business can do CRO as fast as they think they can do it, just because to get statistical significance on a test, it's probably going to run for a little over a week. So you're going to want to take like bigger swings when you're doing testing at that size. So what I mean by that is like you changing one thing on your product page, sure, maybe that's a good test to run, but like if there are other things to test too, just do them all at once, because you don't have the traffic to do each individual test. You're going to be sitting there forever trying to run all those things, and you could do larger changes at the same time and see what the difference is, because 9 times out of 10, the test is not going to win. Like that just is what it is. And you're getting into this idea of a testing mindset. Not that it's losing, it just doesn't create a better result.
Right.
And so just testing stuff is kind of like the attitude that these brands need to get into. But once you get a little bigger and switch out of the startup mode into more of that scaling mode, that's when CRO really starts to make sense. But below $1 million, your time would be better spent finding customers to buy your product, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
I don't know why I went down that rabbit hole.
No,
I already forgot.
No, it's an important one, because the question was, what are the mistakes people make or the things that don't actually matter? And I was secretly hoping you were going to say button color, because I feel like it's something something that it just gets like talked about too much for some reason. We had the battle at my previous job.
Well, it's because Instagram can test a button color, but they're getting statistical significance in 7 minutes because that's how many people use their app, right? It's like they can do it, but you can't. I bet there's someone out there that works for $100 million brand that listens to your show, but I don't think that that's the majority of the audience. So thinking of like how many actions need to be taken to get statistical significance, it's pretty wild. Intelligence has a whole write-up on statistical significance on their website, and I think it's worth reading, or just read it anywhere you want. But basically, it's like at a certain point, you're 80% sure this thing's going to be right, which still isn't 100%. But unless it's like a massive swing, it might not be as big of an impact as you think. So yeah, we always say like try to do bigger things. We're usually starting relationships with brands, and we're going to like do some cool stuff to the product page. We're going to, restructure either how it's handling variants or how it's handling sales or discounts. Or, we've got one client right now where 98% of their traffic comes on mobile, and mobile is just a bad experience. So we're fine tuning that experience, and then we're going to test it just to make sure that while sometimes things seem obvious, you want to make sure that it was done right. And you also want to be able to say like, yeah, we are worth our money. Look how much money we made.
The joys of being an agency, right? So I just kind of want to recap all of the things we've been saying. Look, if you are let's say less than a $3 million business, right? Does that mean that there isn't anything you can do? No, of course there is. Everything that we just talked about, like your navigation menu still matters. Your product page still matters. Your homepage still matters. And optimizing the entire journey, right? When we talk about maybe it's post-purchase cross-sells and email follow-up and all the things you hear us talk about here and what Chase and I have talked about today. So like all of that still matters, and you should absolutely do that. What I want to avoid is you feeling like there's some secret unlock that's going to happen that's just going to blow up your business if you just spent more time like A/B testing shit on your website, because it's just not how it works.
Not at all. I mean, I can even drill down a little bit more into that from like a high level. I've been doing this for 10 years almost. So with a sub-$1 million brand, the numbers are all over the place, but you're going to have like a $75 AOV, 10,000 sessions a month, and a 2% conversion rate. Going from 2% to 2.2% of a conversion rate, that's a 1% lift in your conversion rate. That's going to make you an extra $200 a month or something. The math here is probably wrong, but it still gets to my point, which is what would actually work better for you is finding out how to get more traffic to your website, so then you can do test faster to get a statistical lift. And I think a lot of people get lost in optimization because it's busy work, to be completely honest. You can just get into the weeds and try things, and it's fun. It's doing business, right? It's why we are entrepreneurs. We're action oriented. We're doing something. But I think that we will do that because the true difficult thing is selling the product and getting customers. And that's what people need to really focus on when they're in that phase of their business, that startup phase, is just go find your customers. You need to have a light switch that you can turn on and business starts pouring in. You need to know what that is. You need to know what channel that is. You need to know where your customers are, what you need to do that, because then it makes the next step of optimizing your business that much easier, because you know you can get the traffic. Now let's start to eke out those margins and make things better. I would say additionally, hiring someone that can do it for you. It's an expensive thing to do when you're kind of in $1 million to like $3 million. It's like if you're built on the pack of like an amazing influencer and you guys don't really spend much money on ads, like, oh yeah, this would be easy for your business to find those wins from that cost. But if you're also paying a lot of money for an agency and paid acquisition, now you really got to look at your margins to like, is it affordable to hire like a CRO specialist or team to kind of run these things for you? With all that naysaying, I guess, would be go install a really cool tool like heatmap.com, let it run for a while, and then get in there and start to see where people are clicking, where people are falling off, which parts of your websites are attributed to most income for your business, and start making informed decisions. Start interviewing your customers. Your customers will tell you exactly what's wrong with your business, what's wrong with your product, why they didn't buy. It's like crazy. They will just tell you whatever you want to know. Just do it. So you'll find a bunch of easy stuff there to build into your product pages, into your FAQs, into your return policies, whatever, that will help your business make more money. And then, yeah, you get to a certain point in a certain size where you want to start testing stuff. Intelligence is the coolest tool in the world. So much fun.
Oh, I love all of this. What your customers have to say, they just need to be given permission to say it, but they will tell you everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. You just have to ask for it. And a lot of it is already hidden. And I talked about this on the podcast at the end of 2023. Go read your customer reviews because they're going to tell you everything you need to know. And they're going to tell you why they bought it, which you can then just go use in your marketing. Is brilliant. So many good nuggets in there. So you can't ignore that stuff. And another thing you said is, and I am 100% guilty of this, and I understand why people do it. And I touched on it earlier. It's so much easier to just sit behind our computers and tinker with our website than it is to go post on social media or reach out to other businesses for collaboration or to try and run ads, or all of that stuff is hard unless you just happen to be really good at it. And I think most of us are not. So I understand why you want to sit behind the computer and tinker with every last pixel of your website, but you really don't need to do that. You just need more people.
Absolutely. And here's another thing about your website. It doesn't need to be pixel perfect. I've been on 9-figure websites that look terrible, that are barely mobile responsive. They're making money because they have product market fit and they have the marketing and advertising down and they're getting people into the funnel. Would it perform better if it was optimized? Absolutely. But what I'm saying here is there's a place of fear where you put perfection of the website in front of you finding more customers, which is this limiting belief at the end of the day. You just need to get your product out there and just sell it and just be in that mindset at all times. It doesn't need to be perfect to sell. And if it is perfect, you've already waited too long.
Yeah. Oh, so good. I always tell people pretty doesn't equal profit. And look, I come from the fashion and apparel background, corporate background. I'm not a designer. I'm a design snob. I know what I like. I know when something looks janky. And guess what? Like, there are a lot of ugly websites. There are a lot of ugly ads. There's a lot of ugly everything that performs really well because it speaks directly to the outcome the customer's looking for. And they're like, sweet, that's what I need. They don't necessarily care if it's pretty. The only time pretty really matters is if what you are selling is your ability to create pretty, right? Like if you're a graphic designer.
Or it's a luxury product.
Yes, or a luxury product for sure. But otherwise, it really doesn't matter that much.
No, not at all. And I think that you can put into check by this question, I guess. It's like, why did you become an entrepreneur in the first place? Was it to have a pretty website or was it to create your own income to live the way you want to live? And they kind of are mutually exclusive to a sense. It's like, which one do you actually want? Because I can build you a pretty website that does nothing.
Right.
Or do you want the other thing? Like, where's your focus?
Oh my God, so important. Okay, I feel like we could totally nerd out on this stuff all day, but
next time we'll do it again.
Yeah, we need to. Is there anything we didn't talk about today that you want to make sure gets mentioned?
I would say maybe you mentioned custom themes earlier, and I do have kind of like a strong opinion of that, which is below $10 million a year. I don't think you need a custom theme anymore.
Thank you. Oh my God. I will tell you, I just need a little bit of my experience here. You know, I was just one of many cogs in a wheel. And so my voice was just not strong enough, but having a custom theme is a fucking nightmare. And with Shopify 2.0, especially, you really do not need it.
You can find old episodes of me talking about custom themes on my podcast. And I've said it before and I'll say it again now. When 2.0 came along, we threw away hundreds of hours of work on our custom framework in the garbage. We said, this is a sunk cost at this point. It sucks, but we're going to move on and we're going to use this now. And this, by the way, if you want to know what we use, it's Impact by Maestro is our favorite theme right now.
Got it. Okay. And I will say, if 2.0 was a thing when I was still working my previous day job, that would have made my life so much easier. It's changed the game.
Sections everywhere, and then meta fields, and then dynamic content. It's so awesome.
Yes. And I remember we were using meta fields for stuff, and we were using some Chrome extension to access them. And then that Chrome extension, they stopped updating it and you couldn't use it anymore. And we were like, what the fuck? And we only like half, really understood what was happening behind the scenes there. So between that and then trying to build out a landing page and all of these things, 2.0 literally changed the game. I think back then, there were a handful of themes that you could fake the sections everywhere and create new page templates and stuff, but it was, game changer. And there's a lot of better themes now too. Than there were previously.
There's a lot of themes now in the theme ecosystem. I would say get a second opinion on the theme by somebody. Like a lot of the newer theme companies, we just looked at one the other day for a project that we just signed. It's a redesign project, and something that she had mentioned during kind of the discovery phase, which was just like, we always like want to do something and we can't. And I was like, well, you're going to run into that same issue with this theme you chose because this is version 1.0 of this thing they just put out, and it doesn't have half the sections that you guys even have on your website now. Like, I think you're going to run into a problem here. And so I think that some of the more legacy players still have a one up on some of the people in the market where their themes have a lot more features and functionalities and QA built into them. But one of the cool thing about 2.0, especially now with app sections, is the way that apps integrate into your theme is like infinitely better than it used to be. So that opens up a lot of really cool possibilities. And then there's so many more API endpoints on like the front end API. So you can do a lot of more cool stuff on a theme. But we'll say that like we're not just building themes that are like a templated approach. We'll also do kind of like templated plus or just kind of like iterate upon it. It kind of all depends on the budget and what the goal of the project is. But like using a theme as a starting point of something that is more customized, not custom. Custom is from scratch. Custom is dumb.
Yeah, it's bad.
Custom is going to be a time suck in development. It's going to be a time suck in design. So I always tell people, if you want to do something that's more unique because that's the experience your customer needs and your level of brand affords it, and it makes sense for certain reasons. Take one of these off the shelf themes and then iterate from there, because then it's going to have all these elements and functionalities like already built out that you're just tailoring the look of it. Changing the UX of something with CSS and stuff like that, that's a lot more straightforward than starting from scratch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you too, having worked with plenty of developers, all who were lovely and amazing, but at the end of the day, when they're developing something custom like that, they're doing it the easiest way for them, not the easiest way for you. And so I even remember something as simple as the navigation menu. Because of how it was built, we couldn't even add in a new item because it would screw up the entire layout of it and everything would shift weird and funky. So little things like that, it's just not worth it. Start with something in the theme store and then you can iterate on that. And now too, if you guys, I think there's still some people floating around on a 1.0, like it's time to make the upgrade. There's probably apps you can get rid of because the functionality is built right into the theme. Real quick question for you. And then I promise we're going to ask these other questions so you can go. Siblings. Do you have an opinion on items with variants versus individual items and linked swatches, AKA some people call them siblings, and there's some other names floating around for them?
I do have an opinion, but it depends is the real answer. But we like products with variants. It just makes things simpler.
Got it. Unless maybe you have 3 products in 5 colors and you want to make your website look more full. Is that a reason to use siblings?
No, because because you're like creating more work for yourself at the end of the day. Like, so if I had a product that came in 3 sizes and 3 colors and I wanted to make 9 different product pages, all I've done is like divide all my traffic into 9 different places. So from a CRO perspective, it's going to take 9 times as long to do any split test. What you should do is you just have a better product page that lists all those things out. But if you want to have a collection page that shows all the colored variants, that's really easy to solve for with custom code. It might not be as easy as just sitting down and making 9 product pages, but it's the right way to do it, because basically what you're doing is you're creating 9 different add to cart functionalities that, if you were going to think about it nerdily from your funnel perspective, you could have 9 different avenues for like your retargeting ad, for your retargeting email, for all of the kind of metrics and whatnot. So at the scale where someone's making this decision, I think that they're just creating way too much work than they really need.
So you recommend, basically you do it backwards, right? You create the one product with all the variants and then you code them to show individually, not the other way around.
On a collection page, yeah, which is very straightforward. And then like some themes just have that in there, like this is how you do this with code in their support documentation. That's a CRO thing I always often see too, is people have like all their flavors broken out or all their colors broken out as individual products on collection page. And then you get down to the actual product page and it's like, well, if you're doing retargeting traffic or just paid traffic to one flavor or color, how do you know that's the right one?
Yeah. Okay, so one of the main things I really love to do on this podcast, and I know that you do this too, is you like to tell the real, right? Like e-commerce is not all sunshine and rainbows. So I would love to know from you, maybe working with a client, maybe a hypothesis you had or something you tried that just like didn't work out the way you thought it was gonna.
I can tell a story. We had a client come in and they had bought a business and the website was an old piece of crap. And they were like, oh, like I want to upgrade this, that, and the other. And, you know, what's the reasoning behind all this? That's always, if someone's not asking you why to what you're trying to do, they're not a consultant. They're just like trying to make money.
Yeah.
So I'm always asking why. And basically the conversion rate had dropped since the last year to this year, and they were trying to investigate why that was, and they wanted to increase it because they were spending a lot of money on ads and margins and all that jazz. And I was just like, well, there's nothing obvious, but you are on a 1.0 theme. Going to 2.0 would solve some problems in the way you're maintaining a lot of the stuff. You know, I think there's avenues to improve it. There's no guarantee that this is going to do it. Got him over to a 2.0 theme with a beautiful website. It looks great and all this stuff is like managed well. And it was performing a little better, but it wasn't like drastically different. And what I had told her at the beginning of this was worst case scenario, you're back to where you started, but now you know the website's not the problem. And so that's like setting that expectation up front is something that we do. We can paint pictures of like, this is like a home run, but it also could be back where you started. So there's no magic bullet, like you said before.
Yeah. I wish there was. It'd make my job like way easier, you know?
If I had one, I wouldn't tell anybody about it. I'd just use it all the time.
I'd just be like starting 100 product-based businesses. Start, sell. That'd be fun. I do think there's another product-based business inside me. I don't know what it's going to be, but e-commerce is hard. Okay, so on a more positive note, do you have like a positive story, a good success story of something you guys implemented with the client that just maybe blew your own expectations out of the water?
Absolutely. Lately, we've been doing a lot of more CRO, but historically we were doing like migrations to Shopify and doing a lot of subscription stuff as well. And then now we're like getting more and more into the CRO stuff. And that's been a lot of fun. But I do remember a migration project where they were on like a homegrown platform and they couldn't change anything themselves. Yeah. They had to like hit up the people, and us getting the data out of that was such a nightmare because we had to ask them for it. They knew we were actively taking the customer away. So there's like all this contention, and just getting them off of the bad UX of that. A lot of people don't understand the cost of time and energy of using a bad back end of a store or it not being set up the right way.
Yeah.
How to figure things out, like streamline their entire operations by getting them on Shopify, got rid of this big cost that they had, allowed them to use a more modern tech stack, allowed them to get into paid ads a lot easier because that's something they were transitioning to. And I forget where exactly they started, but it was like around 1 million is where they were. And I think now they're like up to 5. Like it was just like they had hit such a ceiling with this old platform, which by the way, if you're on Squarespace at $1 million a year, call me because that's a platform right there.
God, don't get me started.
This wasn't Squarespace, but that's like,
yeah,
I remember we've done 1 million Squarespace migrations, but some of these platforms aren't built to do e-commerce at the scale Shopify does. And
right.
It just opens up so many doors for growth for your business. So you can start hiring team members and working with partners to really expand things.
Yeah. In my previous day job, when we started our e-com store, because it was initially just a white label commission site, and then we took e-com back in-house, but I was working in a different position. So they initially hired someone and they did all the website stuff like without any of my input. And they put us on Magento. Our developers were in India. It was a fucking nightmare. I think we got hacked more than we were even up. to make sales. Like the whole thing was horrific. And then this new CTO came in. He didn't work there for very long, but I'm forever grateful to that guy. Because at the time I was the only employee and I just cried every day. But he was like, if you really want to scale this thing, you need to get off of Magento and you need to hire other people because she literally cannot do this by herself. Put us on Shopify. I think he worked there for like 2 or 3 weeks, but by the time he left, they had already decided to do the migration to Shopify. And it was just, oh my God, life is so much easier. And, Squarespace, if you have one product and it's just like this little lifestyle hobby biz on the side, cool. If you are building an e-commerce business, you cannot be on Squarespace. They don't got it. It's not it. Sorry. That's my rant.
Not at all. It's just the way that it integrates with third-party softwares and stuff. It's just nowhere near the scale and ease of Shopify. And Squarespace was built originally as a hosted WordPress competitor and then added in e-commerce after the fact. And it's very clear if you use it versus a product like Shopify.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also, I think, is it Square? They have like a website platform too. That's even worse than Squarespace.
Maybe. Do you ever think about how we're never going to get sponsored by Squarespace as podcasters because we are...
Totally. Yeah. Look, I just got to keep it real. I talk crap. Like they all have their place, right? E-commerce is not their place. It's like there's a lot of, over the last couple of years, Flowdesk as an email platform. Everybody's obsessed with it because it's one price, no matter how many subscribers you have. And it's so pretty and all of this. And I'm like, cool. And literally you have no insight into your data whatsoever. So it's the absolute worst email platform you could possibly use for e-commerce. Please stop. And, people will either love me or hate me for my honesty, and that's fine either way.
Absolutely. I did feel validated this last year. Shopify finally sponsored the podcast for a quarter, and I was just like, I've made it.
So exciting. Congratulations. And look, some of the biggest retailers in the world are on Shopify. If it is good enough for them, it is good enough for you. And if you do grow into a $10, $20 million business, you can go headless. It can grow with you from that little mom and...
Don't go headless also.
But if you felt like you needed to, it can do it. It's not necessary for 99.9% of this podcast listener. But the point is, they will grow with you. You can grow with it. It is
Absolutely.
fine. Okay. I think now I just feel like I'm rambling. We're coming up on time here. I want to be respectful of your time and the listeners. So just in case we lost them in our rants and rambles, if there's one thing you want them to take away from today's episode, what would it be?
Install heatmap.com because it's a super cool revenue-based heat map. They're just a partner of ours. I'm not getting paid to say this, but it's a really cool product. If you are going to do this yourself, you need the tools to do it yourself, and you need the data to make those ideations to come up with those ideas. And I think that Heatmap does a really good job of showing you what parts of your website are making you what money, and then make informed decisions from there of where things might not be making you as much money and what you need to do.
I think one of the biggest unlocks most people see when they look at heat maps is how much of their website nobody ever looks at.
Yeah. If it's not making you money, it shouldn't exist.
And how short the scroll actually is.
People, they want a super long homepage, and then we just show them data. It's like people are going to scroll down 12% of this page. You don't need to make all this stuff. Do you want to pay us another $20,000 to do that? We'll do it, but you don't need it.
Yeah, you absolutely don't need it. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Absolutely. If you enjoyed listening to me talk about e-commerce, you can check out Honest E-commerce wherever you listen to podcasts. The agency is electriceye.io. And then I talked a lot about CRO today. We're launching a service called Store Tester. You can find that at storetester.com. It's done for you, CRO. And I'm excited to talk to anybody about CRO that wants to. And for brands of a certain size, we'll even launch your first test for free.
Sweet. Thank you again, Chase, for being here. I really enjoyed our conversation and appreciate you sharing your wisdom with the e-commerce badassery audience. If you were feeling called out in this episode and you want to implement what we talked about, make sure you check the show notes for links to other episodes where I dive deeper into optimizing things like your search and filters, increasing your AOV, etc. And if you're interested in learning more or working with Chase, all of his links are in the show notes too. And that, my friends, is a wrap on this week's episode. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I know you could be anywhere on the internet. I hope you're having a kick-ass day, and I'll see you on the flip side. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you want to learn more about growing your e-commerce business, get started with my free resource library at ecommercebadassery.com/free stuff and get an invite to the Lounge, my e-commerce marketing membership. When you're ready for one-on-one support, apply to work with me at ecommercebadassery.com/apply. Before you go, would you do me a quick favor? Leave a rating and review and tap that follow button. This pushes me up the chart so I can support more scrappy e-commerce entrepreneurs just like you. I'm on a mission to reach as many as I can, and I could really use your help. Thanks so much in advance. Until next time, e-commerce friend, stay badass.